The sky over planet Varelia turned black without warning. No one knew who fired the first shot. One moment there was uneasy silence between the kingdoms. The next, the clouds split open with fire, metal, and thunder. What began as a political argument over trade routes quickly became something far worse. An unexpected war spread like poison through the stars. In the royal city of Sorrentha, once full of beauty and color, everything burned. The palace, built of crystal and silver, crumbled. From heavy bombardment, screams echoed through the smoke-choked air. Panic ruled. Guards ran. Dignitaries fell. And somewhere deep in the broken halls, a forgotten room stayed untouched. Inside that room, hidden behind a sealed vault, sat a young alien girl. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even look up when the walls shook again. She couldn't. Princess Celia was blind from birth. Her vision never worked like others, and her legs had been damaged in an explosion when she was still a child. For most of her life, she was treated like a fragile object. Useless, hidden, not allowed to attend the war councils or make public appearances. Her people called her the Ghost Princess. The shame of the royal line. So when war arrived at their gates, no one came to rescue her. Her father, the king, was killed instantly. Her mother vanished. And her brothers? They fled into escape ships, never once looking back. Not even one of them remembered she was still alive. Or maybe they did and left her anyway. Celia sat in silence, her fingers tracing the floor. Her legs were wrapped in old medical wraps. The sensors on her temple blinked slowly, tracking her heartbeat. She felt the vibrations through the ground ships. Landing, soldiers marching, cries from the innocent being dragged away. Every sound told her something. And each one hurt more than the last. Outside the city, a human scavenger ship landed in secret. The pilot's name was Dorian Cade. He wasn't a soldier. Not anymore. He used to serve in Earth's colonial defense force, but after too many bad missions, too many losses, he walked away. Now he flew alone, collecting broken tech, avoiding politics, and trying to forget. But something about the Varelian distress call reached him. He shouldn't have listened. The signal was weak, buried in static, almost unreadable. But one word cut through: help. He landed in the shadows of the ruins, dressed in ragged armor, plasma rifle strapped to his back. He moved fast through the shattered corridors, not expecting to find anyone alive. But when he stepped into the palace's inner ruins, his helmet's scanner blinked once life sign, faint, weak, but real. He followed the signal down collapsed tunnels and burned hallways until he reached a half-melted vault door. The signal was coming from inside. He hesitated. A trap? Unlikely. Too deep. Too damaged. He touched the panel, overriding the lock. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was cold and dark. But he saw her, a small figure sitting quietly on the floor. White skin with shimmering silver patterns like faint scars. Long, tangled hair. Blind white eyes that didn't move when he entered. Thin legs wrapped in bandages. No threat. She didn't move. She didn't speak. He crouched down. "Hey," he said softly. "Can you hear me?" The girl turned her head. Just slightly. "Who are you?" she asked in a whisper. Her voice was dry and soft. "I'm not with the army," Dorian replied. "I heard a distress call. You the one who sent it?" "No. I don't know how." He stepped closer. You hurt?" "I always hurt," she answered, with no emotion. Dorian frowned. "I'm getting you out of here." "Why?" she asked, confused. He didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was old instinct. Maybe he just couldn't leave someone behind again. She didn't resist when he lifted her. Her body was light, too light, starved, weak. fragile. He wrapped her in his cloak and carried her through the ruins. Outside, the smoke covered the stars. Dorian made his way back to his ship, holding her close as enemy patrols passed nearby. No one saw them. No one cared. Because no one believed the blind, broken alien girl still mattered. But he did. And she held on to him like he was the only solid thing left in a world that had forgotten her. The ship's engines rumbled softly as it broke through Varelia's smoky atmosphere. Dorian sat in the cockpit, his eyes flicking between readouts and distant skies. The girl was quiet. Too quiet. She sat behind him, wrapped in the emergency blanket he'd given her. She hadn't said a word since they left the ruins. No questions. No fear. Just silence. He glanced back. Her pale face was still. She didn't look scared. She didn't look anything. Name? He asked. The girl turned her head toward the sound. Celia. Princess Celia, he muttered under his breath. He knew that name. Barely. She was mentioned once in a diplomatic report years ago, but nobody paid attention. She was blind. Broken. Not expected to rule. Not expected to survive. Now she was the last one left. The human ran a scan of her vitals. Blood pressure low. Muscle density reduced. Dehydrated. Malnourished, but alive. He opened a nutrient pouch and handed it to her. Drink. She took it slowly, raising it to her lips. Her fingers trembled. You've been locked in that vault how long? I don't know. Time feels strange. No light. No change. Dorian leaned back. They just left you? She nodded. They always did. He looked away. The sound of war still echoed in his mind. Burning cities, screaming children, orders that made no sense. That's why he'd left. Why he stopped fighting. And now here he was, again. Saving one life while millions burned. You have any place to go? He asked. No. Any allies? No. Then, I guess you're with me, he said. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then, with a soft voice, she asked, Why? Dorian exhaled. Because you're still breathing. That's enough. She looked down, hands tightening around the blanket. They flew in silence for an hour before alarms beeped. Dorian's face hardened. Damn, patrol ships. They're sweeping the outer rim. He switched off the lights and activated stealth mode. His ship was old but modified. It could hide. Sometimes he turned to her. You ever flown in stealth blackout before? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her pale hands clutched the seat edges as the hum of the engines dropped to near. Silence. The ship drifted in the dark. Through the window, distant stars blinked. Enemy ships passed like shadows, silent, hunting, deadly. One of them slowed, scanning. Celia stiffened. She whispered, I hear them. Like machines with teeth. You can sense that? He asked. She nodded. I can't see, but I feel. Things. The engines, the sounds, the movement. They're angry. He didn't know how she knew, but she was right. Dorian gripped the controls. His ship drifted dead for minutes as the alien patrol hovered nearby. A light flared. Celia suddenly reached out and touched his hand. Now, she whispered. He didn't ask why. He trusted her. He hit the throttle. His ship dropped, twisted between two scanning beams, and spun toward a nearby moon. Missiles launched behind him, but he cut power, flipped sideways, and ducked into a crater's magnetic shadow. Everything went quiet again. The enemy ships flew past, missing him completely. Dorian looked at her, stunned. How did you? I felt it, she said. The rhythm, like music. The moment before danger strikes. He stared at her for a long second. You're not just some broken princess, are you? Celia tilted her head. I never was. They drifted beneath the crater's shadow until it was safe. After some time, Dorian lowered the ramp. They were on a remote moon used by smugglers. He needed parts, fuel, repairs. But first, he needed to make sure she was safe. He led her out of the ship slowly. The moon was quiet. No trees, no life, just wind and stone. Her bare feet touched the soft ground, and she breathed in as if it was her first taste of freedom. "I've never stood outside before," she said. He blinked. "What? I was born after the war began. I've only known walls, machines, caretakers," Dorian frowned. "No one ever took you outside?" She smiled sadly. "Why would they? I couldn't see the stars." He stared at her for a moment, then looked up. "Can't see the stars, huh?" he said. "Then let me describe them for you." He stood beside her, pointing. "That one up there, that's Vardos Prime, red and loud. The one near it is Denari. It hums like a cello. And those three in a row? That's the hunter's line." Celia listened, her head turned upward. Her fingers slowly reached for the sky. She whispered, "Now I can see." And Dorian felt something in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The smuggler's outpost was hidden inside a rocky mountain on the far side of the moon. Old ships sat parked like broken skeletons, their metal rusted, their lights dead. Dorian had been there before. He knew who ran the place, people who asked no questions as long as credits were good and guns stayed low. But this time, he wasn't alone. Celia walked slowly beside him, guided by his hand. Her steps were unsteady, but each one held more courage than the last. She didn't ask where they were. She didn't ask what was coming. She simply followed the warmth of his grip. Inside, the outpost smelled of oil, smoke, and heat. Alien merchants shouted deals. Smugglers whispered to each other in corners. Old tech blinked on worn tables. Dorian moved carefully, his eyes scanning every face. A four-armed mechanic spotted him. "You again?" The creature rasped, chewing on metal wires. "I need a shield core and med stims," Dorian said. "My ship's nearly blind." The mechanic glanced at Celia. "What's that? Someone I owe my life to?" The creature laughed. "Looks more like a sick pet." Dorian's voice dropped. "Say that again." The mechanic raised his arms. "Fine, fine. Don't get heated. I'll get your parts. Double price." "Half price," Dorian said. "Or I tell everyone you were working with the Torvax last cycle." The mechanic hissed, then grunted. "Fine, wait here." Dorian led Celia to a quiet corner while they waited. She sat on a bench, tilting her head. "That man. He hated me. He doesn't even know you. He didn't need to," she said. "He looked at me like I was nothing," Dorian sighed. "He looks at everyone like that. You're not the first." She smiled faintly. "But I'm the easiest target." He crouched beside her. "Let me tell you something about people like that. They only attack what they fear." "Fear? Of me? You're still here. Still alive. After everything. That scares people." She didn't answer, but her fingers gently touched his arm. The mechanic returned with a box of parts. Dorian paid and carried them back to the ship. They were almost out of the outpost when trouble came. 3 bounty hunters stepped out from the shadows armed and not interested in peace. One of them, a tall female with glowing eyes, stepped forward. "You, human, heard you picked up something rare from the ruins." Dorian didn't stop walking. "You heard wrong." "No," the alien said, grinning. "We heard right. A blind royal, weak, helpless, useless to everyone. Except the black market." Celia froze. Dorian's hand tightened around hers. "I'm warning you," he said quietly. "Step back." The bounty hunters laughed. One pulled a stun rod. Tall one sneered. "We're taking her." Celia didn't speak. But her hand let go of Dorian's, and before he could react, she stepped forward, straight toward them. The bounty hunters paused, confused. Celia raised her head. Her blind eyes didn't flinch. Her voice was calm but full of something sharp. "You think I am nothing," she said. "You're wrong." The bounty hunter raised the rod. "I don't care what you think, girl." She took one more step, and suddenly all the lights around them dimmed. The air changed. Something cold swept through the outpost. Machines buzzed. The ground shook. Dorian's scanner blinked red dot and energy spike coming from her. "What the bounty hunter stuttered, stepping back. Celia stood still. "My people feared me because I could feel things they could not. I could hear the sky when it was angry. I could taste the storm before it came. They thought I was cursed, but it wasn't a curse." The air shimmered around her body. It was power. The bounty hunters backed off, uncertain now. Dorian stepped beside her. "You good?" "I'm fine," she said softly. "They won't touch me." The bounty hunters vanished into the shadows, unsure whether to believe what they saw. Dorian took her hand again. "Next time, warn me before you turn into a walking thunderstorm." She gave him a tiny smile. "I didn't know I could." They reached the ship and lifted off within minutes. Back in orbit, Dorian checked her readings. Her vitals were spiking, but not dangerously. Just awakened. "You've never done that before?" "No," she said. "But when they threatened I felt something break open, like a wall in my mind." Dorian nodded. "Might want to figure out what's behind that wall." Celia leaned her head back and whispered, "Maybe I'm not broken." He looked at her, quietly impressed. "No. Maybe you're exactly what the galaxy needs." They drifted through the stars in silence. This time, her fingers found his hand first dot and she didn't let go. Asterisk. The next few days passed, like quiet wind through broken glass. Dorian's ship moved between dead satellites and forgotten space lanes, far from the eyes of hunters and patrols. He didn't speak much. He was watching her Princess Celia more carefully now. She didn't act like a royal. She didn't order him around or ask for special food or soft chairs. In fact, she barely asked for anything. She spent hours just listening to the ship, the stars, the way silence changed with every jump. But something else had changed too. She wasn't shaking anymore. Her steps were steadier. Her voice carried more weight. She even asked questions, now real ones. What's a black hole feel like from inside? Or why does space hum louder near broken ships? Dorian didn't always know how to answer, but he liked the sound of her curiosity. It was life, real life, something she probably never had. They were flying past a red dwarf when a long-range ping lit up Dorian's console. Bounty notice, public, wide broadcast. He clicked it open, then cursed. "What is it?" Celia asked. He didn't answer right away. On the screen, her face slightly younger, thinner and pale appeared beside bold alien letters. A royal bounty. Massive payout. Dead or alive. Posted by a Virelian noble house. Someone's paying to have you found, he finally said, and they don't care how. Celia didn't blink. It was only a matter of time. "You know who sent it? My uncle. He always wanted the throne. My parents stopped him. Now they're gone." Dorian narrowed his eyes. "Then why not kill you outright when the palace fell?" "He didn't know I survived. Now he does." Dorian looked at the bounty again. "We'll lay low. Change your ID. Use different ports. I know how to disappear." "No," she said firmly. He turned to her, surprised. "No? I don't." "Want to hide," she said. "Not anymore." He raised a brow. "You do realize half the galaxy will come hunting if you show your face." "I'm done hiding in vaults and shadows. I want to stand." Dorian paused. She wasn't asking. She was declaring it. "You can't even walk properly yet," he said. "I'll crawl if I must," she replied. He stared at her for a long moment. then nodded once. "If we're doing this," he said, "you need protection, gear, and someone who can train you. I have you." "I'm not enough," he said plainly, "but I know someone who might be." He turned the ship toward the outer asteroid belts. Hours later, they landed on a floating wreck of a station hidden inside an ice cluster. The place looked dead scrap metal and frozen airlocks, but when Dorian banged on a sealed door 3 times and waited, a laser turret peeked from above. Then the door opened. A tall woman stepped out, face half covered in metal, one glowing eye scanning them both. "Dorian," she said dryly, "I thought you were dead." "Close," he replied. "But I've got someone important." The woman's eye locked on Celia. "What is she?" "Royal," he said. "But more than that, she needs training. Defense. Focus." The woman smirked. "She doesn't look like much." Celia stepped forward. "I hear your joints clicking before each step. You're injured, right hip. Your voice is tight, you're angry. But not at me, you're hiding pain." The woman blinked, then laughed. "She's not bad." Dorian gave a half smile. "Will you help?" "I'll try. But if she slows me down, she won't," he said. For the next 3 days, the woman who introduced herself only as Vara put Celia through intense training. Not physical. At first, mental. "Your mind is sharper than any blade," Vara told her. "But it's wild, unfocused. Learn to aim it." She taught Celia how to listen deeper, how to turn vibrations into pictures in her head, how to sense motion in a room by pressure alone. By day 4, Celia could track Vara's movements with only her ears. By day 5, she could tell what Vara was thinking just by the way she breathed. "You're dangerous," Vara said, impressed. "I like it." That night, Dorian stood beside Celia on the deck, watching stars spin slowly past the cracked windows. "You're growing stronger," he said. "I'm becoming myself," she replied. He turned to her. "You still want to face your uncle?" "I don't just want to," she whispered. "I need to. Because I'm not a ghost anymore. I'm the last heir, and he fears that." Dorian looked into her blind eyes. There was something burning behind them now. Not hate, not revenge. Something brighter, hope, an end. Maybe justice. The stars outside the ship looked calm, but Dorian knew better. They were flying straight into a storm. Celia stood in the training bay, sweat dripping from her forehead. Her body ached, but she didn't stop. She was learning to fight not with her eyes, but with her senses. Her hearing, her instincts, her strange connection to energy fields. Vara circled her, striking with a wooden staff. Celia blocked with growing skill, turning before the strike landed, dodging a blow she didn't see, but felt. Dorian watched from the corner, arms crossed. She was different now. Still fragile in body, but strong in spirit, unshakable. And now, she was asking for the impossible. "I want to return to Virelia," Celia said that evening. Her voice was calm but heavy with meaning. Dorian turned from the nav screen. "Are you serious?" She nodded. "Your uncle still controls what's left of the Royal Guard," he said. "He has the media. The people believe the royal family is dead. You walk into that mess and you might not walk out." "Then I'll crawl," she repeated like before, "but I must go. If I hide, he wins." Vara walked in, drying her hands. "She's right," she said, surprising Dorian. "She's not ready for a battlefield, but she's ready for a statement, something public. Something big." Dorian raised an eyebrow. "What are you thinking?" "A royal address," Celia said. "A signal sent to all major systems. A truth no one can ignore." Vara smirked. "She learns fast," Dorian sighed. "You'll have a target the size of a planet on your back." Celia stepped closer. "Then make sure the galaxy sees me before they shoot." They landed on a neutral relay station near the verge. Independent territory. No loyalties, just signals and commerce. Perfect for reaching billions. The crew prepared. Vara secured the perimeter. Dorian hacked into the broadcast hub. Celia sat in a quiet room, breathing slowly, preparing her voice. When the time came, they connected her to the station's wide feed channel. Dorian adjusted the mic. "Whenever you're ready." She nodded once and began. "My name is Celia of House Virelia," she said. "I am the daughter of King Viorin and Queen Terra. I am blind. I was crippled in a palace blast when I was a child. I was called cursed, forgotten, left behind." Her voice was clear, soft but strong. "I survived the fall of my people. I saw the betrayal of my own blood, and I have watched my world suffer under the rule of liars. Across the galaxy, people stared at their screens. On mining ships, in war bunkers, in dusty bars and silent homes. Her voice reached them. "I am not asking for a throne," she continued. "I am not asking for war. I am asking for truth. I am alive, I am here, and I will not be silent anymore." Dorian watched the feed's response bar light up. Thousands of systems tuning in. Comments flooding the lines, some in shock, some in rage, some with tears. Then she ended with one line. "If anyone still remembers Virelia, remember me." The screen faded to black. Silence. Then a ping. Then 10. Then 100. Messages, data links, open channels. Old friends of the crown, veterans, civilians, even a few retired Virelian guards. The galaxy had heard. "She did it," Vara whispered. But just as hope rose, so did the danger. An alert flashed red. A warship entered orbit above the station. Virelian markings. It was him. Her uncle. Dorian's scanners screamed. They tracked. U.S. Celia stood from her chair. "Good," Dorian snapped. "What?" "I'm not running anymore," she said. "Not now." The station shook. A message came through. Video feed. The face of her uncle appeared, old, proud, cold. "Celia," he said. "I thought you were dead." "You made sure I was," she answered. "You think a speech makes you strong? You're still broken." She took a deep breath. "You're wrong. You're afraid. That's why you silenced the bloodline. But I survived, and they heard me. They remember." His expression twisted. "You leave me no choice." "I never gave you a choice," she said, cutting the transmission. Dorian turned. "We can't fight that ship. We're outgunned." Celia reached forward, touching the screen. "Then we don't fight." She smiled softly. "We show the galaxy who he really is." Dorian blinked. "You want to let him attack?" "On a neutral station, with civilians, with a live feed running. Let him prove my words." Dorian stared at her, then grinned. "That's bold. Then help me make it real," she said. "Make the world watch." And he did. He reconnected the feed and waited. So did the galaxy. The countdown began in silence. Dorian activated the live feed just as the Virelian warship shifted position above the relay station. It looked like a giant metal claw hanging in the stars. Anyone watching would know it wasn't here for talk. The station was still under civilian law. An attack here would violate interstellar neutrality. But her uncle didn't care. Pride had made him blind. Power made him reckless. Now the galaxy would see it. Inside the broadcast room, Celia stood tall. Her hands were steady. Her blind eyes faced the camera with a quiet fire. Vara was ready near the emergency panel. She'd wired the entire system to transmit live footage of any strike. If one plasma beam hit the station, the whole galaxy would see it. "We're locked in," Dorian sighed. Everything's transmitting, Celia nodded. Good, he's coming. She was right. A voice cracked over the speakers. Her uncle's voice harder now, louder, almost trembling with anger. Turn off your broadcast and surrender, Celia. He ordered. You're a disgrace. A cripple pretending to be a queen, Celia replied calmly. I don't want a throne. I want the truth. You stole it. He ignored her. You are nothing without that human. A broken girl hiding behind outsiders. I survived without you, and now I stand with more honor than you ever had. Dorian watched the readings. The warship's weapons were charging. He whispered, he's going to do it. Celia didn't. Move. Let him. Vara watched from the side. This is it. Then, without warning, the first warning shot hit the station's shields. A tremble shook the floors. Selya didn't flinch. The feed showed everything, her standing tall. The weapons firing, the station shaking under an unprovoked attack. The world was watching. A faffin. Second blast followed closer this time. A section of the lower deck exploded, air venting into space. Civilians screamed. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. And still Celia stood there. I will not run, she said aloud. I will not hide. If I must fall, I will fall in the open so all can see who I truly am. The broadcast captured her voice, captured the fear, the courage, and then something shifted. Dorian's scanner beeped wildly. What is it? Vara asked. Someone's coming, Dorian said. Multiple ships just entered system. They weren't enemies. They were allies. Old Virelian ships, rusty, out of date, but still armed. Piloted by those who had served her father. Piloted by those who had watched the broadcast, remembered her voice, and believed. One of them hailed the warship. This is Commander Rivek of the Loyalist Wing. We serve the true heir. Her uncle hesitated. Dorian leaned forward. He's losing control. More ships appeared. Civilian freighters. Outlaw patrols. Even a few human vessels. All sending the same message. We stand with Celia. The warship turned slowly, its guns still armed, but its commander now surrounded. Her uncle's voice returned. You think this matters? You think a few broken rebels will save you? Celia answered, louder this time. No, but the galaxy already saw who fired first. They saw you attack unarmed people. They saw you try to kill what you couldn't control. Silence. He had no reply. The warship blinked out of orbit, jumping away without another shot. The station breathed. The feed ended, and for the first time in her life, Celia heard something she never expected. Applause. From the technicians. From Vara. From civilians who had hidden in fear, but now stepped forward with their hands over their hearts. They weren't cheering a throne. They were cheering her. Dorian stepped beside her. You did it. No, she said. We did it. Vara smirked. You just turned a galaxy on its head. Celia's lips curled into a small, real smile. Then maybe it was worth crawling out of that vault. In the following days, her name spread faster than her enemies could control. She wasn't called broken anymore. Now, they called her the girl who stood, and they remembered her, not because she ruled, but because she refused to kneel. The rebuilt halls of Sorrentha looked nothing like the palace she had once known. Gone were the crystal arches and silver floors. Now, metal walls hummed with clean energy. Soft lights replaced the glittering chandeliers. The royal banners had been taken down, and in their place, a symbol newly crafted from old scars, a rising star, half-shadowed, half-lit. The sign of survival. Selya stood in the center of it all, facing a crowd of former guards, workers, farmers, and survivors. No throne sat behind her. No crown on her head, only the truth in her voice. You were told I was weak, she said. You were told I was broken, but it wasn't blindness that kept me in the dark. It was fear, yours and mine." She paused. The air was still. "I won't rule as a queen," she continued, "because power can be stolen, but belief, that's earned. I'll serve, not rule. As your voice, your memory, and your protector." A wave of emotion passed through the people gathered. This wasn't the speech of a royal demanding loyalty. This was someone who had walked through fire and now invited others to stand in the light. In the back, Dorian watched silently, arms crossed, heart full. He'd seen leaders before, generals, presidents. He'd followed orders from those who ruled through fear and numbers. But none of them stood like her. Vara leaned toward him. "You sure she doesn't want the throne?" He smirked. "She's already got something stronger." The people died after the warship fled weeks ago. Her uncle vanished into deep space, his forces scattered and discredited. Some loyalists were arrested. Some begged forgiveness. Celia didn't ask for revenge. She asked them to rebuild, if they could do so with clean hands. She formed no royal guard. Instead, a council of representatives, human, Varelian, and more, stood beside her. Decisions were shared, laws rewritten, and people across the galaxy watched. Some doubted, some feared, but none could ignore, because the girl who was once locked in a vault had become a symbol no one expected. That night, Celia returned to the top level of the palace ruins. There was no roof yet, just open stars above her. She liked it that way. She could feel the stars better when nothing stood between them. She heard footsteps behind her. Familiar ones. "You never rest, do you?" Dorian said. "Not yet," she replied. He stood beside her. "You're changing the galaxy." "I didn't mean to. That's why it's working." A quiet moment passed. She turned slightly toward him. "You took my hand when I had nothing." "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Finally he said, "Because you were worth saving." She smiled. "Even when I was blind, broken, and forgotten?" "Especially then." She reached for his hand and found it, holding it gently. "You helped me walk," she said. "Now walk with me," he chuckled. "You mean through politics and endless meetings?" "I mean into a world that no longer looks away from people like me." He nodded. "Then yeah, I'll walk with you." The wind moved gently across the ruined palace walls. Below, construction lights glowed. Children played. Soldiers laid down old weapons and picked up tools. And across distant systems her message still echoed. Not because she had power, but because she stood when no one thought she could. They used to call her the Broken Princess. Now they called her the Heart of Virelia, and beside her stood a human, quiet, loyal, and unshakable, who once reached into the dark and pulled her into the light.